on leave from film school, and I was in Lagos working on a memoir about my mom called Elizabeth's Daughter. My mom was late. Happy Mother's Day, Mommy. And so I wasn't sure at that point where filmmaking fit into my life, and when the story hit the news, I just felt very passionately that the woman's story wasn't really getting told. And I'd been hearing some things because I had friends that worked in the African immigrant women's community in New York, and so I just wanted to tell this story, and so I basically went back to film school. So it's actually this story that brought me back to filmmaking, and I just wanted to tell a story about a woman whose life had been basically blown apart, who has to move on. And to get back to the first question, because a short film is a really difficult form for such a large story, I decided to explore a 3-month period of time between when the case is not moved forward, the criminal case, and she decides to pursue the civil charges. But I'm actually developing it into a feature film. You can visit issamovie.com to find out more about that. But it is a very large story, and since then, Dominic Strauss-Kahn has gone on to settle a civil case for an undisclosed sum for the woman. So for me, I really felt it's a story about justice and speaking truth to power that really needed to be told.
Absolutely. Applause, applause. I watched Space, and I'm encouraged to know that I have more places to go. So thank you for that. It was very, very inspiring and unique. So address your choice, and in particular, the theme and how you came to choose that.
So I found the story because my aunt was talking about it. She was sort of talking about many, many things. I'm from Ghana, and she was talking about many things, and she suddenly said something like the stupid zombies that wanted to go to the moon. And I was like, what? So I started researching it. Not many documents are left behind. There's maybe 5 documents, and they're mostly from Western gaze, you know, like British news, people going into Zambia to talk about this story. But that was kind of interesting to me, because here was a story that was all about desire and all about want in the face of impossibility, and how that sort of brings out the most, I'm going to say, human facets of our humanity, like characters in this sort of human crisis. And so that, would, to me, is the theme and the shorthand of how I told the story, because this is going to be a feature. So shorthand is very important in this film, because not only was it a short, but it's also like we are shooting the Zambia desert on a beach in New Jersey. So it was like, but what it did was I was like, okay, here are the images of desire and want and painful want that I can sort of create to sort of work around this theme and sort of explore this atmosphere of the situation rather than the nitty-gritty of event, let's say, because in our access to the reality, not much is left behind. So fact, you know, it's a space where fact isn't. Fact is backgrounded so that emotion can come forward, because that's what the newsreels can't explore.
I feel like we've been doubly blessed by having the exposure of the camera in still form in the visuals that we got to see in the feature from the Congo, I should say, the short. So can we talk about that a little bit? Because it was really beautiful, and especially looking at some of the backgrounds that we use, I started thinking about how much we have, you know. You start thinking about things like that. So I wanted to talk about Congolese dreams. Oh, I'm so sorry. I knew there was one short, and there I go. All right, well, who said I'm perfect? Probably the people who made me. Ben, it's your fault, because that was my count originally, and someone thought they were all here. So, and there's not even a chair, so here we go. So let me talk to you, sir, because your topicality is one that comes with a lot of, how shall I say, misunderstanding, lack of acceptance in a country that's really putting laws in effect that wants to deny people their choices. So certainly a brave path you've taken, and tell me your boost for going ahead and doing that. And I'm sure there's more to come. I felt like I wanted to see a little bit more of how things evolved.
She's referring for
and
those
this is Kuhini.
Kuhani,
sorry.
which means priest in Swahili. And for those who might not know what she is referring to, she's referring to the Anti-Homosexuality Act, which has been a law that's just recently instated in Uganda that makes basically any homosexual behavior punishable by life imprisonment, or if you know somebody you don't report them, 7 years imprisonment. And recent legislation is also passed in Nigeria and a few other countries throughout the continent. And I had the opportunity to do some work in about half a dozen countries in Africa in 2009. And I wanted to make a short take advantage of all these different locations. And I went to a costume shop and was torn between a Santa Claus outfit and a priest outfit. And I settled on the priest outfit because I thought I'd have more anonymity. But I just set off wanting to take striking images, not really with a narrative in mind. And when I came back from that trip, that was in the summer of 2009, Uganda had proposed this anti-homosexuality law. And so I tried to figure out how to connect the footage that I'd shot with the stuff that was happening in Uganda. So I traveled to Uganda and met with folks in the LGBT community and started to try to develop this piece, and ended up creating a solo performance play, which actually captured a lot of the narrative that I was hearing from the ground. And this short was really more of an experimental way of exploring some of those themes, particularly through the point of view of a gay priest that I'd met who had been outed in the press, and who actually wrote an open letter to the church accusing of its hypocrisy. So this is sort of born out of that letter that he wrote.
And please forgive me for looking in the direction to which you had no connection. I was feeling okay with it, don't remind me. Please address your vision in terms of cutting to the chase again, and what allowances or what things you might have to leave behind, when you're doing a short. With the hope, of course, that it might become a feature, as I'm hearing many of the makers say.
Well, this film, I actually don't plan to make into a feature. I feel like I said what needed to be said. It was also a commission from Focus Features Africa First program, and it was also an ode to my father, who, at the time that I wrote it, had passed away 10 years before that, and I wanted to write a personal story about the relationship that I had with him, which was a very strong relationship. And I settled on sort of this piece of our relationship where, for a period when my mother was away, she was working for the UN and was traveling for a year and a half, he would take me to the hair market to get my hair braided, and he was the only African man that I knew who ever did that. And my dad was, he was special that way, and I knew that. So I decided to write a comedy around one of my friend's fathers, for example, and what his experience might be taking his daughter to. My dad got into it. He had designs, and he'd draw them, and he'd bring, and he'd explain it. But that's very rare, and so I wanted to sort of do the flip side of what that day might be like, and in the spirit of exploring, this relationship that this father has with his daughter, with his family. He's trying to be the good guy. His wife is dying. He's going to look like a jerk if he lets her take her to the. He has to do it, and he doesn't know what he's doing, and he clearly needs some guidance. And the only way to win this battle, so to speak, is to actually let his daughter to collaborate with her, and she has to defend him in the end. And so I wrote it as a short, because there's a finite sort of period of time that one's hair gets done. So I do write feature scripts, and writing shorts is never easy, and shooting shorts is never easy, and there's always has to be stuff that needs to be cut out, and I have a good team. Luckily, I had a wonderful team that not only helped me to shoot it, but to edit it as well, to help me get there. And and with comedy too, it's about the timing. You can't really sort of go on and on and on with a joke, because then it's no longer a joke. So you have to be very particular about that, and I needed to have not only cast members who could help me to do that, but also crew, as far as post-production crew, editing crew, who can help me to actually keep the rhythm and keep the timing of what it is, so that what I'm trying to say is effective.
Okay, I'm going to open the hall up to those of you who may have questions directly. You know, usually folks want to know about funding and distribution and perhaps what's going to happen next with the work. But I think they all made important points in the works, at least from my humble point of view. So if you have any questions or comments, please show your hand and be very direct and short and brief, because they start giving me that chop look. Yes, all the way in the back, I think. Yes, last row. And could you just speak up a little bit louder?
I wrote the flashbacks in. I tend to work a lot with flashbacks, and given that I'm still currently a thesis student, I'm still fine-tuning how to use that, but I tend to experience stories more that way in terms of memory, so I'm often using flashbacks in my work. And but in terms of what the specific images were in the flashbacks, I had to play with that a little bit to make it more coherent in terms of the story. I also wanted to recognize lead actress Jennifer Chakbe, who's here. Stand. Jennifer, stand. And I also wanted to mention Linda Mbaho, who's the assistant events coordinator for the African Film Festival, is my producer. Please also stand for Linda. There's actually several Indiegogo donors that are here today. If you guys want to wave or stand as well, please do. Thank you.
They didn't stand, and I need to know who you are so I can hit you up for the film that I'm going to make. I'll find you. I'll find you. Yes, another question or comment? Yes, right here.
One of the interesting things of why I love short so much is this idea of trying to be succinct as much as possible. And the one thing I'm curious about is, were there any during the editing process, were there any scenes that you just wanted to keep or decided in the end it had to come out? Can you explain the process of why and what you wish could have been?
Would you like to take that question?
You basically cry and let your editor do the dirty. No, yeah, that happens to me a lot, because I think that I'm a big believer in the idea that you write a movie that dies when you shoot it and then it dies when you. So you're not trying to edit what you wrote. You know what I mean? It's just like you have to make it present emotionally, and that's it. For me, specifically, there was a scene where the aunt is leaving, and she's trying to get Mata to get into. To get to the city with her, and it explains sort of story more, and it also has this beautiful shot with the moon between them as she's sort of deciding, should I stay or should I go? And it just had to go, because anything to me, I discover in edits that anything that is explanatory and just explanatory doesn't usually help the story. It has to be emotion.
Is it okay, Lisa Cortez, if I ask you a question? Yes, I saw your name attached to a film, and we had a little project together recently, so how did you tie in with this wonderful story?
Lisa's the
I took her away from electronics on purpose.
I was posting on Instagram.
Good for you. Everybody do the same. So please tell us how you attached yourself to the project.
Well, what's great about Confidence is it's truly an international co-production. Our other producer partner is Piano Films. It's based in Mexico City, and I happen to meet Adoma through Creative Capital. If you don't know about Creative Capital, you should check out their website and consider applying in all of the arts, because not only do they provide funding, but also support to creative people. So at the retreat, I met Adoma, who started talking, and then she introduced me to the guys in Mexico, and let's make a movie.
Right. Another question or comment from the audience? Yes?
The actors in your movie, are they also part of the LGBT community, and did they get into problems because they show themselves as such in the movie?
question was, if you didn't hear it, were the people in the piece from the LGBT community, and if they got into trouble from being involved in the piece. And there's a clip where there's there's two people who are transgender, they're well, these human drag, and their makeup and then straight out. And we shot, going back to the other question about not having footage or having to cut footage out, we got some really great footage of them walking around in Lagos in their full-on drag through like incredible traffic jams, and they didn't get into trouble when we were shooting any of that. But I couldn't figure out how to put it into the footage, so I just used that clips. But when it came time to crediting them, there was only one of them who wanted to use his real name, and the other preferred to use a fake name. And those were the only people from the LGBT community that were actually featured on camera. Yeah.
Comment, question? Yes, the standing person.
Her question was, have I shown the film in Uganda? And I was actually in Uganda this past November, December, and I did show the film to some of the folks in the LGBT community. And I was pleasantly surprised by the response. I showed it to the priest who inspired the piece. I think he was expecting something a little more, less abstract. But I think that's also part of the reason it's sparked a little dialogue in Uganda, because it leaves a lot to the imagination, which I think can also sometimes create more dialogue.
Yes.
What made you decide to use the wrestlers in that film?
Her question was, what made me decide to use the wrestlers in the film? And I was actually I shot the piece in over, I think, 8 countries. So in France, that opening clip is from airport in Paris. I shot it in Zanzibar, in Rwanda, Uganda, Sierra Leone, Senegal, Nigeria, Dubai, and in Joshua Park. And I was in Senegal and Dakar, and I always carried a priest outfit. And I shot everything on this little point-and-shoot camera. So I'll take a picture of you guys there. So I literally just had my point-and-shoot and my priest outfit wherever I walked, and anytime I'd see an image that I wanted to take a photo of, I would try to figure out how to take a video of it, and then try to figure out how to insert myself into the shot. And so I saw these wrestlers training on the beach, and it's just otherworldly. And I went up to one of them and asked if I could wrestle with him. he laughed, so I actually had to have a friend who knew some other wrestler who was agreeable to shooting it.
Does this mean stop now, or I have one more comment?
One more question.
Thank you. Right there.
Yeah, I would just like to say that
Hi, Shelley.
I'm just so sorry the other young man wasn't here who did that film, because it was such a powerful piece. But I also would like to say it is just so wonderful to see you all sitting up there and doing such fine. For many, many years, I often told my students, there's nothing our people haven't done. So I just wanted to give you.
We've probably been to the moon as well. All right, well, Ben has given me an indication that our time is up here. I'm sure the artists will be available in the lobby so that you'll be able to continue the conversations there. Please do keep in mind that the film festival continues here at Lincoln Center at the Monroe Film Center Monday, Tuesday, and then there's a special screening at the United Nations, and then it comes uptown to the Maisels, and also at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. So thank you all so very much for coming out and supporting.